Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Jamie Lee, and I'm joined by my husband, Jared Lee. Hello, Jared.
Hello.
Well, we just got back from Universal and Disney for like a quick whirlwind of a trip. Lots of stuff going on. But we did do a lot of Universal stuff this weekend, which is cool. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about Halloween Horror Nights tour we did called Unmasking the Horror tour. And we're also going to talk about our Universal annual Passholder nights that we did as well, which is kind of a not new thing, but they kind of brought it back for like, I think they did it last year. And then again, before that, like 2019. So we're going to talk about those two things, but I do have a question for you, Jared.
Okay.
So given all of the times that we go to Universal and all the rides and stuff we do, what would you say is like the one ride where if you don't do it, you don't feel like complete that you've been to Universal? If you were going like a vacation or whatever, you're like, oh, I gotta ride this ride. This is the must do for me.
Well, I mean, I guess since I was younger, like a kid, I would say Spider-Man. That's always the one that was the one I went. I mean, I remember being in 8th grade. That was a fairly new ride then, and I was like mind blown by it. I was like the part where like you fall at the end. I felt like it was like my stomach dropped and all that stuff like that. So I would say Spider-Man. Obviously, like a lot of people, Hagrid's is a great one, of course, but for me, I would say Spider-Man is one of them. Like if I'm around it, I'm gonna do it. Especially now, it's not a terrible wait. Usually it can be 20 minutes or less, 30 minutes or less. So and it's still a great ride.
Yeah, that's what gets me. It's over 20 years old, and it still is super impressive.
Well, as time has gone on, I would have been in the camp years ago of being like, man, I really wish Disney had the rights to Marvel in the parks. And now I'm back to where I'm like, I'm glad Universal has this for whatever it is, because I love that era of Marvel, like the 90s comics. Like that's what I grew up as a kid. So I'm actually glad it's there. Like it's a simple land, but I like Spider-Man. I like all the stuff. Yeah, like the Captain America Cafe. Like I've grown to really like it and appreciate it a lot.
So they should rename it to 90s Marvel Superhero Island. Is that what you're saying?
I'm listen, they can leave it as it is. I am curious about that land going forward though. How much longer it sticks around. But while it's there, I will appreciate it. But what about you?
No, that's a good one. I mean, I got to ride it again for the first time in a long time because usually when we go with our kids, our son, for whatever reason, he doesn't ever want to ride it. He likes Spider-Man, but I think the ride, it just kind of freaks him out a little bit.
He's been on it multiple times and enjoyed it. So I don't know. I don't know. Something along the way he didn't want to do anymore for some reason.
But anyway, so I have to usually sit out with him, and you and our daughter go on it, and you all get to do it, and that's great. But I have missed out on the last couple times. So it was nice to ride it again, and I agree. That ride just really holds up. It holds up really well.
Yeah.
But so I would probably agree with that. That or like E.T. E.T. is such a classic. I mean, it's the oldest attraction, I think, or not attraction, or I guess it is. Like ride wise, it's the only one that's left. There's still the horror makeup show, but E.T. is the only, opening day one left.
Yeah, and if you think about the queue, I mean, that whole ride was a little bit before its time in terms of like the queue. Like that really wasn't a super common thing back then that you had these queues that were very much like part of the ride, like you're in the forest going through it. Like that stuff they do nowadays.
Right.
So it's held up well, and it's one that like everybody in our family will ride it, so all the kids like it. And
I'm a big fan of physical effects and special effects that use like physicality and not just like screens.
Right.
But that's a discussion for another day. But today we're going to talk about, like I said, Unmasking the Horror Tour and our Passholder nights. But first we have some housekeeping, and that includes talking about you should subscribe to this podcast, obviously, whatever platform you're listening on. And also check us out on YouTube if you are only listening. You can watch us as well.
You can over at CTM Podcast on YouTube. So if you are watching us there, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe over on Captain Magic. That's the main YouTube channel where I do daily videos on theme parks or pop culture, whatever stuff that is interesting to talk about. And if you want even more content, you want to contribute to the show, you want to be part of a cool group of people, you should check out Club 32, and that's our private group. It's like our own Patreon, but we host it on our own end. And in there, we have additional content like Cool Kids Kitchen, which is a monthly live stream where we cook and make a dish in the kitchen Sometimes, many times turns out well. Sometimes it does not. But either way, it's always fun. We have the Club 32 show, which is a weekly live stream on Tuesdays where we hang out with everybody and just chat and talk about, latest happenings or just random things that pop up. It's always a good time. We also have the Clubhouse show is coming very soon. And then we have Music Loops. There's a private podcast feed. There is a private Facebook group. You get 25% off of CTM apparel and 1901 Candle Company products and additional live streams, all sorts of things. So if you want to go join there, you can go to ctmvip.com. We have monthly or yearly options, and you can even do a free trial if you want to try that out. Or if you do a yearly, get a free t-shirt. So either way, you get something for free. So again, if you want to check that out, ctmvip.com is where you go for that.
All right. Well, let's get into the episode. So, like I said, we did the Unmasking the Horror tour this past weekend. And Jared, what is this tour? This is at Universal Studios.
It is at Universal Studios. This is a behind-the-scenes daytime and lights-on guided tour of 3 haunted houses that will be at Halloween Horror Nights. Now, this was the first year that it's been going on before Halloween Horror Nights actually starts.
Yeah, and you can only do the 3 house tour right now. They do have a 6 house tour you can do, but that doesn't start until the opening night of Halloween Horror Nights.
Right. So, and in this one, a lot of the houses were still being worked on. So it was you kind of watch them go up in progress sort of thing. But last about 2.5 hours, and like I said, 3 houses. So the 3 houses that we got to see on this tour this year was Slaughter Cinema 2. And this one is kind of what it sounds like. It's like a horror movie marathon at a drive-in that goes, it's a bad time.
Yeah. You basically are supposed to be in Cary, Ohio, which is the setting for a lot of the Halloween Horror Nights houses in the past. And they have basically B movies.
The concept is cool.
Are displayed in the house.
Yeah, it's like, and I suppose a little bit here, there could be some spoilers. I don't think we're going to mean to, but because we did see, like, we're going through these houses on some level. Yeah. So we will be talking about some of the aspects that are in some of these houses, I guess I should say.
Not too much. No, we'll keep it minimal.
I'm just saying, if you want to go completely fresh, you may not want to hear some of this, but we did go. But yeah, like you walk in and you're in a almost like the lobby of like a local theater. Yeah. And then you've got like movie posters and you go from scene, like each movie is its own room. So the concept of this one, I kind of like the concept going into it, but after doing the tour, this one I think will be really, really cool.
And this one is a 2. So this is a sequel, I guess, if you will, to another house that was Slaughter Cinema 1 or just Slaughter Cinema from 2018, I believe.
Yes.
This one was pretty cool.
Yeah, we did that one. Another one I think was really interesting was the museum. So Deadly Exhibits. So this one is a folklore museum's newest exhibit, the Rotting Stone. And they bring it in here, and it has released an evil spirit that decays everything, including the building. And it's basically coming for people inside the museum. Yeah.
So, they get this new exhibit, the Rotting Stone. They're thinking, oh, this isn't going to be a big deal. This is just, again, just a story. It doesn't do anything wrong. Well, it does. It does. It affects the building hardcore, and then the building starts attacking people, basically.
Right. This one is much more, it's not as much people doing things. It's like, it's making things around you do stuff. So
exactly.
The concept of this one, again, was really cool. And they make the whole thing look like they even have a desk where you would pay to get into the museum and stuff like that.
In the lobby, yeah.
I will say there's something interesting at the desk. Mm-hmm. Not going to say what it is, but when you go through this, that'll be an interesting part of this.
Yep.
And we'll go a little bit more in depth on some of these after we kind of go through this description here. And the last one we went through was called Triplets of Terror. And this one says you're invited to the Barmy Triplets birthday celebration, but their kind of party involves recreating the murders of their entire family. I have to say this was my least favorite one.
This is not Jared's vibe.
Well, I don't like... I'll tell you one thing I don't like, and now I don't like the horror genre in general. I will fully admit that. But one thing inside of it I definitely do not like is like children committing murders and like demonic children. I just don't like it. So it's the house is interesting. It's well done. Mm-hmm. It has some aspects to it that I'm sure are going to be pretty freaky. But in terms of story itself, I'm like, okay, I'm least interested in this one compared to the other two. But again, it was cool to see the set pieces and stuff like that. Okay, out of the 3 houses we got to tour, now obviously it lights on is interesting because you don't have the fear aspect, and you learn a lot about.
Yeah.
You learn a lot, where they'll be in the house. And granted, we didn't get to see everything. There's some stuff you can't see, and some of the stuff in the tour you can't take pictures of. You can't take pictures of some stuff, but not everything. But out of all the 3 ones we walked through, which one do you think will be like your favorite out of these 3?
That's a good question. The scariest one. Well, you didn't ask me that. You said my favorite.
You can say scariest one
okay.
too. I guess that's another question. The scariest one and like your favorite one, if they're different.
I think the scariest one for me is probably going to be probably the Triplets of Terror. It's probably going to be the scariest one for me because it would involve something that like could happen, like murders. Like could happen, like other people murdering other people. It happens. The demon stuff with the rotting stone, the evil spirit, obviously that's folklore, and then the movie stuff, maybe not as much. But I think I could be the most scared with Triplets of Terror, based on what we saw. It gives very much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes.
Yeah, I would say that.
That kind of family.
But which one do you think will be your favorite?
Oh, the most would be my favorite. Probably Slaughter Cinema too, based on what we saw.
Yeah, that one I think is the coolest one that it seems like anyways. Like,
out of the 3.
Again, it's just B movies that are already that sort of campy. Like you're leaning into the campy part of it. Mm-hmm. So I like that idea of it, and like room to room is different movies you're going into. So yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Yeah, I think I like the museum one as well. It's a similar concept to Slaughter Cinema. I just like the Slaughter Cinema idea better. Like an old drive-in movie theater seems cool.
And like obviously, like we were saying, this is a lights on tour, so we're getting the basics of how they are doing all of these, these effects and how they're scaring people and tricks they use with lighting. And he was telling us about the costume designer and how she was creating the colors and the fabrics, and everything was like very interesting. So if you're ever interested in the way they make movies and like movie sets and everything, like this is something that you would definitely be interested in because it's along the same lines, like creating things to make it look like it's real, basically set designing stuff and all that.
Yeah, it also goes into they look at sight lines, like where bringing your eyes certain places, and there's like little mirror tricks. I think they showed in the Triplets of Terror of what you're looking at when you're going through the tour is actually through a mirror, because it's what's on the other side of it is something that's supposed to like, because you're not expecting it. So there's just little things that they do in there. I thought a lot of it was really interesting about that.
Yeah. Stuff like that is really cool. And like I said, we're not going to give away everything about the tour because, obviously we want you to do the tour and experience it because it's really cool.
Well, I more or less just like, if you're going to do Halloween Horror Nights, you may not want to know.
And you may not want to know. So yeah. And so the 3 Halves tour, which is the one we did, they began tours on August 11th, and it starts as low as $99 per person. And the most expensive nights you can do are Saturdays in September and October, and it goes up to $160 per person. Now, the 6 House version starts September 4th, which is a few days after the start of the Halloween Horror Nights, and it costs between $180 and $230 per person. So it is a little bit more to do the 6-hour house tour, but if this is something you're really interested in and knowing like the background of the houses and the story and the creation with it, then you might want to do the 6-house tour. The times vary of when you could do them. It can start as early as 8:45 and all the way up to like 11 a.m., but they're probably not going to be any later than that. It's usually just starts in the morning. So.
Yeah. All right. So some of the details on the tour, there's no more than 12 people per tour group. So it is a small group, which is nice. You do walk through some aspects, at least on ours, aspects in park, but you do have headphones and like a little transmitter. So, he's not yelling. If you've ever been on a tour, they kind of do this all the time. So it's just easier to hear somebody than instead of, especially going through like a crowded area. That part makes it better. Because
you'll be walking from where you check in over there, all the way across the other side of the park, and you have to walk through the park to do that. So there's a lot of talking that the tour guide will do, and you will not be able to hear him if you were in the back.
Right.
Way in the back.
Yeah. So you do not need a separate ticket admission for the tour. So you could just do this tour and not have an in-park like ticket for the day.
Right.
Because where you go in is a separate thing. You end up in the park, but like once you're done, you're escorted back outside the park.
Yes.
So if you're thinking about doing this on a trip and you don't know if you need a park day, you don't for this one. It's a separate thing. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, like we said, you can take some pictures. So they will tell you on here, he'll say cameras up or cameras down.
Photos up, photos down.
Some of them don't make a lot of sense in terms of, at least to me, of what you can and can't take pictures of. They'll sometimes in a room they'll tell you can take pictures of everything except for this thing on the wall here or this thing on this side. So some of it's very specific.
I can tell you what it is. Anything that has words.
Well,
anything that's words you cannot take pictures of.
But sometimes you'll be in a room and I like our guide a couple of times he would say, pictures up, but then he wasn't really clear that the next room was down. But he would be like, oh, put him down. And people they were very respectful of it. But so a lot of stuff you can take pictures of, some stuff you can't. There's a cool part on the museum one, I'll just say. I won't say what it involved, but I wish we could have took pictures in there. Well, it was very Nordic in nature. I'll put it that way. But yeah, that whole area you couldn't take any pictures in there. Okay. But it was a cool spot. But yeah, I mean, and again, there's some stuff of like, interesting to see it because when you're in the haunted house, even said like this is going to have like lighting effects and strobing effects. And like, again, you're going through a haunted house. It's not like you're able to sit there and like really look at details. It's much more about just like quick things that get your attention. But it is interesting to see it, even if, again, I'm not like the biggest haunted house fan, but I do look at that. It was neat to see all that stuff that goes into it.
Something that we did learn that you'd be interested in even if you're not doing this tour, every year they have I'll just say creature, like a little bug or a little animal creature that appears in every single house. And it's kind of like just like an Easter egg thing. And last year it was a frog. If you look around, you find the frog. You see it in every house. And this year it's a snail. So if you're going through the houses and you see a little snail, that's your Easter egg for that house. So.
Yeah. One thing I do like about Universal is obviously the more we've gotten into it over the years is that it has its own lore and stuff like that. Because some of the people in our tour had done it before. And they've been really big Halloween Horror Nights fans. Yeah. So they were aware of a lot of the stuff. Now, one thing they also do is internally they code name houses, different things. So this year it is different types of desserts.
Right.
Not like that every year, but when you know what they are, when you go through the house, you will see that dessert somewhere.
That was just so funny
in the haunted house. So like it would. I don't know what the other ones are. I think they did tell us what the other ones are.
He told us what 3 of them were. Like the 3 of the houses that we had. That's it. We don't know what the other ones are.
There was a board that had the stuff up there,
but not all of them.
Right. But either way, so this one, and like internally, let's say again. This isn't what they had said. Let's say one was key lime pie. That would be referring to a very specific house. So they do that so that whenever they're planning and talking, things don't leak out. So instead of you saying Slaughter Cinema 2, when you're working on something, you say, oh, yeah, over at key lime pie, which is not what it is. But this is what we're going to have, this, and this. So it's a way for them to, I guess, keep stuff from getting spoiled, per se.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a clever way to do it. One thing I would say, our tour guide was very good. His name was Kyle, and he's been guiding tours for a while. He said, and he used to be a performer. And so, I mean, if you ever do the tour and you get him, I'm sure you'll have a great tour because again, he was awesome.
I think he said he used to do stuff at Disney as well.
Used to be a performer at Disney.
Or something. Yep. I think he used to do VIP tours over there is what he said.
Yep. I think he did. Is that what he did at Disney? I can't remember.
Pretty sure that's what he had said.
Yeah.
One thing I remember I found interesting, which wasn't a surprise, but basically they anywhere from 12 to 18 months ahead of time, they're planning the haunted houses out, which means so right now they're planning next year's.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And so we were back there by the offices and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work goes into these. And the part we were in where you go into, like those are set up in those tent areas like year round.
Yeah. There are I guess they're permanent tents now.
I think
they're
they
permanent.
are. So they can get that stuff set up and really built out as the year goes along. And then some of the stuff, obviously, in park is much more quicker to put together. But at least some of them, I guess, maybe the more complicated ones, they could really have being built up for a while.
Yeah, and he said typically they start, constructing the houses is back in February.
Yeah,
that's usually when they start. So, the ones that we saw, the first 3 were obviously close to being done. They were still working on them, but they were close. So that is something to think about, that if you do these tours before the event starts for the year, you might run into that. So if you do this tour if you do this tour after it starts, so let's say you do it some like mid-September, then you're going to get the full effect of the houses.
I don't think there was anything. I think most of the work still ongoing was exterior, though. The internal stuff did not look like it was still being worked on. Like in the museum part, those guys were working on stuff, but it was external stuff.
There was some stuff they were still working on. There were some.
But not major parts.
Not major. No, not major. But still just little things here and there, I'm sure. But yeah. Anything that stuck out to you as being really cool about this tour that you wanted to share? I mean, my favorite thing was learning about the, honestly, like the costuming. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, so it was like the different types of like the scare actors. Like they have, I forget what they call them. They're little foot pedals that they can use to like do sound effects, because he's like, obviously, if you're working Halloween Horror Nights and you're somebody that's a scare actor, you're doing this for multiple months. Like if you're yelling every night, your voice is going to go out.
Yeah.
So basically, they have little foot pedals that can do scream stuff for them, or it can trigger certain effects. And there's different effects. Like there's an effect that can just be like the guest triggers it. There can be an effect that's just on a loop, or it could be one that scare actors do. And like once you know what to look for as well, you could probably I don't know if you'll be able to spot those specifically. A lot of times they're hidden.
Those are hidden.
But I can say, pay attention to the flooring you're walking on, because when there's like non-slip flooring, you're going to have some sort of wet effect, whether that's going to be like rain or it's supposed to make you think it's like blood splat, stuff like that. Like, so there's different things. Maybe it's pointing them out that when you see these things, you can kind of know like, oh, something's going to be like, not to get you soaked, but like there's a house where it's raining. So they're going to like have it where it's like, you get a little bit of rain on you and stuff.
Because there's one thing he said was, the actors, scare actors, like people can't touch you, but the effects can.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like that's why they had those transition rooms, because it's also to break up like sight lines. So like it obviously you can still hear stuff, but you may not be able to see it. And then certain things of adding those elements, like he said, like that they can touch you with their effects. And also like the visual and audio side, but they just can't physically touch you.
Right. But
in terms of the thing that stood out the most, that's a good question. Well, I think it's the fact of, which I always like in these things, like all the Easter eggs and little nuts, because like a lot of times there's names on walls that'll be people that worked on the houses. You've got the little snails things. You've got the little like code names for the houses, like all these little things internally that 99% of people aren't going to know, but it's kind of a cool thing. I'm sure if you worked on it to be like, oh yeah, that's my name over there on like the, on this in the Slaughter Cinema lobby, there's a name there for something, like my name's on there, stuff like that. So
yeah, that is pretty cool. I like that. I don't think there's anything else really to say about it. And again, we don't want to give away too much information in case you do it, and in case you don't want spoilers about the house. So yeah, would you do it again?
I would. I wouldn't want to do the same one again, but I would do it again. I mean, again, Halloween Horror Nights is a rather new thing for me, so I'm definitely easing my way into the horror genre. But I had a really good time last year at Halloween Horror Nights. Yeah. We're obviously going again this year, so seeing the houses like this is it's a cool thing. And I suppose if you're scared of the houses, it may not be a bad way to like ease yourself into, because you understand it's not like. I know people know that, but it's not like a real thing. It's like it's a working set.
Yeah.
Like just understanding the story behind it and stuff like that. But
I always get scared going through the houses. I'll turn a corner and then I'll see a team member who's just a team member. They're not part of the house, but they have them around the houses, like standing there, just checking to make sure people are still walking through,
Right.
and like organizing everything. And every once in a while, they'll catch me off guard where I'm like, "Oh, you're not part. Sorry, let's
Yeah.
keep going." That's it. They didn't really say anything about that, but I was just thinking that out loud. But anyway, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to mention anything else. I don't want to give away too much information, but
No, it was good. I feel like
yeah.
I feel like the value wise, it wasn't a bad price for a tour.
Yeah.
Like a backstage tour, stuff like that. So and again, it's interesting to see just the details and the planning and stuff like that to go into it.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, let's move on to talking about Universal Orlando Passholder nights. Okay, so every year for a little bit before the pandemic, they would have a passholder night. Again, they lasted this in 2019, and then it went away for a couple of years. They brought it back in 2023 for just one night. And then this year, there's actually 2 nights. And we'll talk about why in a little bit. But first, we'll talk about what it is. What is it, Jared?
Well, their exact verbiage is join the UOAP family at Universal Studios Florida for Passholder Nights presented by Coca-Cola, August 16th and 17th. Enjoy favorite rides and attractions, character appearances, the Coca-Cola Zone with live entertainment, beverage sampling, and more. And then this was you had to pre-register for this, and there was no standby available on the day of the event. So I think that's something to keep in mind that they'll probably do going forward as well.
This is part of the Universal Annual Passholder Appreciation Days that started August 15th and runs through the end of September. So that's important too. This is a whole big deal around this time of year. They do it every year where they have special entrances into the parks. They have discounts. They give away like magnets and pins and special food and drinks and etc. And then there's obviously this event as well. So let's talk about our night.
Right. So since you have to pre-register for this, you have to go check in. So you don't go into the park first, at least through the normal gates. You go off to the side. It'll say, passholder night registration or check-in. You go over there. They told us when we came in, you needed your confirmation email and your ID and obviously your annual pass. All we needed was our annual pass and our ID.
She did look to make sure we had registered. She looked at my phone.
Oh, she did look at it?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that
she
part.
looked to make sure I had a confirmation number and the date and everything. So she did look at that. So
I figured they would have that like in their system though.
They do. I think it's one of those things where it's like if you don't have it, they'll go ahead and scan it to make sure it's valid. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you do that, and we did that around. You can start doing that at 4:00.
Yeah.
We did it close to 6.
It was like 5:45, 5:40, something like that. Yeah.
No, we didn't do the first night. The night before, some people had said around 7. The line for this was astronomically long.
Yeah. So we were like, we're going to do it much earlier than that before it actually starts because it starts at 7.
Yeah. So getting in here as early as you can is a good bet.
Yeah.
The line there was a long line, but it moved very quickly, I will say. So it cleared up. So you get a wristband, you got a magnet, and then from back there, they also had cast members if something was going on you could get help with.
Right.
They had a table. I think there was a raffle.
Some giveaways and stuff
like that, which we didn't do. So went through, and then so once you register, they basically take you back there by Blue Man Group where they do like the Grinch show, and then you go right back out, and then you go into the park. I suppose you don't have to go right into the park. You can do whatever you want to do, but we went right into the park at that point.
Yeah.
So we got into the park right around 6:00.
Yeah, it was right before the parade started. The parade starts at 6, so everybody was kind of lined up for that when we got in. But we decided not to do the parade. We decided that we were going to actually use our express pass after a floor perk and ride some rides.
Well, we've watched the parade before, which I like the parade, but we decided Green Gods, at least the night before, was the one that had the longest wait. So we went ahead and did that. And then we went and did Men in Black. Because this is stuff that Jamie and I normally get to ride together. So we were kind of just doing it because normally we have the children. We'd have kids with us this time. So,
but there was a reason we went back to the back first, because there was a special meet and greet that I wanted to do. And I got in line for this at 10 after 7. And I did not meet these guests, these characters, until about 8:20. And it was the Men in Black agents with Frank, the pug from the movie. I think it's the second or third movie. And it was an actual real dog in a suit.
So if you're wondering if Jamie will wait an hour for a meet and greet, it will be for a dog.
It will be for a dog.
I myself was not doing this in terms of waiting an hour, so I left.
I was like, you can go do stuff. He's like, okay.
No, I was literally, as you said, I was about to leave anyways. I was like, I'm not standing here for an hour to wait for a dog. I came back and got in the picture.
Oh, he took full advantage of me standing there for an hour. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Listen, I didn't really care much about the picture.
I know
but
you
I was
didn't.
just like, I'm going to
I know
go.
you
So
didn't.
I went off while Jamie was in line making friends.
I did.
Because Jamie's kind of an introvert a lot of ways, but if you put her in line with people, she will undoubtedly make friends with people.
Yeah.
It's a knack that she has.
And I got a bracelet. I got a UOAP bracelet from one of the ladies. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, I was there when she
Oh, you
gave
were
it to
there?
me.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't get one.
Oh,
I didn't
I'm
make
sorry.
I wasn't friends with
You
her.
weren't friends. No.
That's fine. They also played, by the way, basically early 2000s like music.
It was
Like, a lot
awesome.
of Ja Rule was going on.
It did loop around. I did hear the full.
It wasn't a
playlist.
vast playlist, I will say. I could have helped them a bit with some of the songs, but either way, they did have that going on, which was fun. But so while Jamie was waiting in line for this, I just kind of walked around. Jamie tried to give me orders and to take pictures, and I said no.
He did take pictures. Don't you worry.
Leave it to a wife. You can't even just enjoy yourself at a park. You got to do other stuff. So I took some pictures, but I did go over. They had a UOAP cupcake.
It wasn't a cupcake though. I don't know why they called it a cupcake.
I didn't make the rules.
It was like a
called
cake.
a cupcake.
It was like a
it was
dessert.
it was in a cup. It was like a layered. It was technically like a cupcake.
Had a little chocolate piece on the top.
Yeah, so it was a funfetti cake layered between frosting in a clear plastic cup with a logo. With a logo white chocolate piece. So this was like 7 something. Now you still, you get your AP discount. It was $6.25, I think, with the discount.
Yeah.
Was not that good. Just very sugary.
No.
It was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't anything that was like amazing. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at getting this, it looks kind of cool, but it's not very good in terms of a cupcake itself.
Yeah. Jared was going to go get pizza fries, which is like one of those foods that they always have at like Halloween Horror Nights and on special events and stuff. But the line was very long.
Well, there's a
pizza
long
fries.
line outside. This is at Louis. So Louis had a really, really long line for ice cream. And then
On the outside.
On the
part.
outside.
Yeah.
And then inside was both areas were filled up with people. I don't know if everybody was getting pizza fries, but it was very busy.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I decided
Yeah.
against that.
But the meet and greet for Frank and the agents. But after that, we decided to, obviously got the picture. We decided to go kind of towards Simpsons area. We did not stop in Simpsons. Don't you worry.
You got to let it go.
I'm never.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The rumor is Simpsons is not going to be, like, the contract there is not going to be renewed.
Great.
I'm not a fan of Simpsons either, so don't get me wrong here. No, if you don't know, Jamie has a grudge against Simpsons because it took out Back to the Future.
That is correct.
That's her grudge.
That is correct.
So let's say Pokemon goes in here, which is a rumor.
Okay.
Are you going to be like vehemently against Pokemon in here? Or is it just strictly the Simpsons?
Well, no, because the Pokemon replaced the Simpsons. It didn't replace Back to the Future.
So Pokemon is like your hero in this case?
It's one tier down from being my enemy.
Okay.
So I'm okay with
So you will
Pokemon.
actually do stuff in Pokemon Land?
Well, it depends on what it is. I don't know.
Because Jamie won't do anything in Springfield.
No, it's a walkthrough, and I hold my breath like a cemetery. Just kidding. I don't do that. But I just can't
It's
do.
close.
Well, the Simpsons ride is just not good anyway.
Well, true. It's not a good ride. And, like, really, the land is whatever. But
Yeah, it's
it's
fine.
just funny because Jamie, I'm pretty sure she does hold her breath when she walks through there.
for a
But
little bit.
yeah, so
Anyway, we went through there. We were gonna ride ET,
ET had a 45 or 35-minute wait, something like that. It was a long wait.
and we're like, we could walk on this other days, so we'll just pass on that. What did we do? Oh, we took some pictures over by. They had a huge UOAP marquee like sign out in front of Mel's drive-in,
Yeah, they did that.
and we took pictures with that, and then we rode Transformers because it was a walk-on.
It was a walk-on. Fast and Furious was down.
No,
Not down. Sorry, they just closed it. Sorry,
They just didn't
closed
have it open.
They
Yeah.
knew that the family didn't want to come play.
Didn't want to come.
They also had some meet and greets around too. They had Woody Woodpecker. Not a lot though. They had Woody Woodpecker. They had some characters meeting over Illuminations. They had
Guy Diamond was at check-in when we checked in. He was there.
Check-in. I'm guessing in DreamWorks Land, we didn't go back there. I'm guessing they may have had Trolls characters out.
I did not see any characters out when we walked by.
Because I didn't see Shrek out.
See, I thought that Shrek and Fiona were supposed to be out. I do not think they were.
Yeah.
I don't think they were because I didn't hear anybody see them. Some of the animals from the Animal Actors show were out. That was kind of cute.
I didn't really feel like getting a picture with a skunk personally.
Yeah.
Some people were.
Some
That's
people
fine,
did. Then is it? I think it's Labby the cabbie. I don't know. Some character is all dressed in yellow with a yellow cab. I don't know who this character is, but apparently he used to be out a lot and they retired him a while ago. But he came back out, so I was like, okay. So those are other meet and greets that were out, and it was Woody Woodpecker and Winnie Woodpecker as well.
Sorry, and they're also dressed as like Frankenstein's. Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, they had some like Halloween costume kind of on. That was a pretty popular meet and greet. That was a long line.
That one had a long line, yeah.
Yeah, and of course Beetlejuice was out being his.
Beetlejuice
awesome
was laying on a bench like he was a homeless man asleep, and then he was he was pretty funny,
living his best life.
So they did have some meet and greets. Also, the Bourne Spectacular was not running.
Right.
Neither was a horror makeup show. So not everything was running, but for the most part, most things were.
I feel like they were, yeah.
Yeah. So we did Transformers, and after that, we kind of just went around and walked around a little bit. I was kind of looking at some of the Halloween Horror Nights stuff they had put up, and then we went over to the main stage over there.
Yeah, that music plaza area in the front by Rocket, what's that name?
Rip Ride Rocket.
Thank you so much. I was at Rock and Roller Coaster. I'm like, that's not it.
Said.
That's not it. But yeah, they have this whole area set up, kind of like, I don't know, it's just like a party dance DJ thing.
They had a DJ thing. They also had two separate, they're like pop-up bars set up. One was here, one was over in the San Francisco area, and it's basically everything you have at a normal bar. I think the beers may have been like $1 cheaper, but it wasn't like a heavy discount or anything like that. So they did have that if you wanted to drink. They had people going around with like different types of like taking picture elements, which was kind of cool. It was like a ring light, and you could take a picture, and they would text it to you.
That was cool.
And stuff like that. They also had another UOAP sort of backlit, like a like black box with a
grass
backlit
wall.
Yeah. They had, now this is also where they had a Coke thing up, and it was free samples of a new type of like Sprite. It was called like Sprite.
Sprite Chill.
Cherry
Lime. And it was actually pretty good.
It was pretty good. But they had different types, and you just walked up and grabbed what you could have had. You could have drank till you just were full.
Well, they had that. They had regular Sprite, and they had Sprite Zero. So it was just
but it was all the chill stuff.
It was all chill?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I didn't notice it was all chill. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
And they said, hey, it's chill. And no, they didn't do that. But yeah, there was no limit. You could just grab whatever you wanted there.
Yeah.
And then, outside of that, mostly the rides. And it was, by this time, it was
about 9.
About 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And we were really tired. So we decided we're going to go ahead and catch Sensational.
Yes, the fountain and laser drone show that's over in Central Park area. And it was kind of busy. It was packed over there in that area.
Well, we also walked up right when it started.
Right,
so.
we did. And because we've seen this and we weren't like looking to be in the middle of everything and then have to like, find our way to get out because we were planning on leaving after this. So we watched it. It was great. And then we decided to head out. It was like 10 o'clock. So we stayed for most of it.
Yeah, it was about 10 o'clock when we left.
So there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention about this event that while they did better than last year, there were some things I was like, ugh. One was they had merchandise for this event this year. Last year, the years before, they never had any. So I was like, oh, awesome. They have a shirt and they had a hat. They sold out of the shirts the night before. So there were no shirts on our event night, which I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe next year we can plan better for that or put limits on how many people can buy shirts because people were buying like 10 or 15 shirts per person and it was out of hand. So anyway, that was one of the things that I wish would change maybe next year. The other thing is, and this is just a complaint about the freestyle machines in general, but oh my gosh, there was no ice in any of the machines.
This is kind of a common thing though, with as the day goes on at any of them. But yeah,
I understand.
And not only ice, but
ice.
they were out of a lot of the flavors as well.
That was very annoying. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, and there was 2 times where we tried to get a drink and it like said it was not there, and then we couldn't get a drink for another like 15 minutes, and I mean, it was hot. And
okay, I should be clear that I like diet grape soda. Nobody makes diet grape soda except for the freestyle machine. So when they have Fanta Zero and they have the grape, I always go for it. And 2 times straight, I went to do it. And it got about like maybe an eighth of the way full, and then it shut off and said, "This flavor's out." And then when I go to pick something else, it said I had to wait 10 more minutes. So
yeah,
this happened 2 times in a row, which is a little frustrating, which I get it. But it's just something they definitely need to figure out with on the freestyle machines of like ice and just making sure those things are manned, which I think just comes down to just personnel. They just don't have enough people manning them to keep them full. So but that's something you'll hear about a lot about the freestyle machines, which I do love.
Yeah.
I love the idea of them being able to use them. And I honestly too, I wonder on some level, I'm standing in line for them, and like we've done this too, but I wonder if they need to have another system for people who want water, because a lot of times when you're in these lines with these freestyle machines, half of them are people just wanting water.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wish they would have another thing for water, and maybe not have water be available at the freestyle machines.
Like
just
water only.
Something, because I think it would just help with the moving of the lines, because again, you've got people that have paid for the access, and again, we've done this before as well. I'm not knocking the people who have done this. I'm saying have another place to get water, so that it doesn't clog up the freestyle lines. But
exactly,
my thoughts, I'm not going to be very critical of a free event.
Exactly, this was free. Yes, this was free.
So when it comes to critiques of a free event, I'm going to be very I have a hard time doing that, because I think Universal, they don't have to do this. So
absolutely,
it's something that I do appreciate that they do a lot of things for their annual pass holders. Mm-hmm. I think they try really hard. And I think from hearing the feedback from last year's, I think they did make a lot of improvements. Now, like we were talking about like the merchandise. At the same time, sure, don't let people buy 12, 15 things each, whatever.
Sure.
But at the same time, you're also talking about a 2-night event where if that doesn't sell, they're just going to be left with it and just sell it for nothing eventually. Or maybe they hold it next year. I don't really know. I mean, they may do that. But it's it's hard to guess how much demand is going to be there for merchandise on maybe like the second year recently they've done this. So that's something they could work on as well. The only thing I would say, I would suppose something like this would be more meet and greets. I think that's something. So when you come to like annual passes, like for us instance, like we're Premier, so we get the Express Pass after 4:30. Is it 4?
4.
Sorry, 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Let me read it. So for us, we have the Premier level. So we get Express Pass after 4. So a lot of the stuff, like we're used to going and be on the ride. So the rides, while available, is a cool thing. It's almost like an after hours event.
Yeah.
That's free, which again, that's great. But the rides for us wasn't the big draw because we can do that already.
Exactly.
And it's on the studio side, which does have less stuff generally.
Yeah, I mean, there's way more to do over in Islands, in our opinion, as far as that goes.
So really, I think more character meet and greets are like unique characters, like the pug and stuff like that. I think more things like that, and the pass holders would enjoy quite a bit of. And then I guess if you could look at it as like Disney has their after hours events that they pay, it's $150 per person. Mm-hmm. It includes free drink and snacks. I don't know if you have to go that level. But maybe, I don't know. I have a hard time with it. It's like on some level, maybe some sort of like free popcorn, just something that's just a nothing thing for them. Like popcorn doesn't cost you much and a thing or whatever. But all in all, like I'm not gonna have a lot of complaints about it. It was cool. It went on a long time. 7 to 11 is a long time for a free event.
Oh no! Like my like I said, my main complaint was the fact that I didn't get to spend money and buy a shirt. Like, okay, make more shirts next year, easy fix, right? And then the whole thing with Freestyle Machine, that wasn't even about the event. That was just in general. That was just a frustration that I had. But it's really great that they do this event for the annual pass holders. I'm glad that they did not do a standby line this year, because last year they had one pass holder night, and they let in all of the people that didn't get registered for the event in time whenever the date came out, and they let them in the park, and it was really busy. Like it was just like a regular normal day.
Right.
And so that was a big mistake that they did last year. And they were very clear in the verbiage about the event that there is no standby line. You had to be registered. So that was nice to be able to have to regulate
something like this, you're never going to please everybody.
Sure.
And if you're in the Passholder group on Facebook, there's plenty of people that get mad all the time about stuff. And so like there's going to be people that get left out and they're going to be upset. End of the day, you can't make everyone happy. The only thing they could do is do more nights of it, which again, they don't have to do because these things cost them money. They have to pay personnel. Now, granted, they're making money on merchandise, people buying stuff.
Yep.
And I will say they give you an extra discount while you're there, and they do have food available and things like that. So at the end of the day, I don't know if Universal's losing money on this, but they're not. It's not a normal park operations, put it that way. So they could do more nights of it, I suppose, to try and meet the demand for it. But all in all, it's a cool event. Yep. It has a cool vibe. It didn't seem like it was insanely crowded. It wasn't like an after hours event at Disney where the park seemed empty. It didn't seem that level, but it definitely seemed like a little more chill. And again, you're talking about pass holders, so a lot of these people, they're used to the parks and people know what to do.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a really cool environment. Had a good time. And if you're into like wanting to ride rides, it's a great opportunity to do that because again, I think ET was actually the highest wait time.
E.T., Roller Coaster, and Green Gots. They all got up to about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But that was the highest.
I mean, Transformers, literally, once you get through the 1.5 mile long queue,
right.
You're right on there.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were low weights. And yeah, I mean, all in all, I had a good time.
I did too. I had a great time. I hope they do this again next year and maybe do more than 2 nights and hopefully every pass holder can do it if they want. But yeah, I mean, hardly any complaints here. And I'm glad, and I say this for the differences between last year and this year because they listened. They listened to the feedback of what happened last year and they fixed it. So I really do appreciate them doing that.
That's one thing that I will say when it comes to obviously we cover the parks, different parks. Universal does a really good job of that. They're not always going to get it right, but they always, at least to me, seem like they're trying. And they're always listening to feedback and sending out surveys and doing what they can as when it comes to theme parks. They're growing a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of interest. You can't please everybody, but they do put forth an effort, and I do appreciate that. Yeah. Which is why, I mean, I've often said about a lot of the things of, people have questions about, say, when Epic Universe opens, will APs be able to go? I'm like, I just have this inkling that they will make it right by APs because they typically do very well for their APs. And they're very appreciative, and I think that's something that is a testament to them and stuff like this. I actually, weirdly enough, have faith in the way that they treat their APs, which is not something I normally say about giant corporations. So if you've listened to me long enough, I don't usually typically would be like, they seem like they care. And it just, they put forth that effort, which I do appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good way to end it. Thank you so much, Universal, for having this event. And we had a great weekend. We had a lot of stuff going on, but this is 2 of those things we wanted to do, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and obviously there's not another one of these going on this year. But if you're thinking, if you want to know how it went, and maybe next year, I'm sure they'll probably do it next year. We had a good time. Yeah.
We did have a good time. So, all right. Well, that is all we are going to talk about today. So before we go, just want to mention a couple things. We do have more shows on the network besides the Universal episodes. We've got our Disney podcast that we have on Thursdays. Jared and I talk about all the Disney news and usually a topic here and there. And let's see, we've got Trip Tales that's on Mondays once a month. I've got another one coming out at the end of the month, and then I'll go back to my regular once a month schedule. So if you want to be a guest on a future Trip Tales episode, you can go to ctmtriptales.com and fill out the information, and I will get it. And if you are looking, or you have a trip that I'm looking for or want to know more about, then I will contact you. What else? You can find us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok, and we're Cap the Magic everywhere except for TikTok. We're Capture the Magic. And don't forget to check out ctmapparel.co for all of our apparel and your apparel needs, right?
Yes. There'll be a lot of new shirts coming out for Halloween and the fall and Christmas and things like that. So be sure to check them out. Yeah. And again, if you're a Club 32 member, you get 20% off year round. So.
Yeah, it's great. So, All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening or watching. And thank you, Jared, for being here as always.
You're very welcome.
And as I always like to say, we will see you in the parks.
Bye.